Hello, welcome back to HunterTuned. Today I'm going to be putting some normal style decap truck injectors into my four-door beater, winter beater sleeper Civic. It's not really a sleeper because it's not that fast, but we're going to be putting some decapped injectors into my, it's a D15B. I already got the injectors removed from the intake manifold, and now I'm going to be putting the new injectors in. Actually, I shouldn't say new because they're not brand new injectors. They're injectors that are pulled from running engines most of the time, or like insurance crash vehicles. That's usually what like the junkyards by me get. And I pull them out of there and I flow them, decap them, and then install them into these cars. And I think it's kind of like a misconception, I think, that people are thinking they're getting a brand new injector for $100 that works and is reliable. That's not the case. These have been working and reliable for me and hundreds of customers that I've sold them to over the years, but they are not brand new. I try to clean them up as best I can, but a lot of these injectors have, like, you know, 100,000 or more miles on them. But like I said, this is kind of how they come. They're not, you know, there might be a little speck or something on here, dirt, and it pisses some people off. So I just wanted to clarify once again. Here's a good example of one of them. It's still got, they got some stains on them, you know, on the bottom where the caps normally sit. You know, they're not brand new. I just want to kind of let you guys know. I don't think on the website they say they're brand new. I should probably just like add to the description, like, these are used injectors. They are tested, but they're not brand new. Funny story is I actually bought brand new AC Delco injectors to decap and flow and all that, and none of them are worth a shit compared to the ones I pull out of the yard, out of running, driving LS engines. None of them compare to those. These ones that I pull from these trucks that got a couple 100,000 miles on them, they don't have any sign of stopping, you know. So where I've gotten brand new ones and the variance is all over the place, the spray patterns suck, it's just not, these are a good injector because they are OEM. Like, they worked for how long? I don't see why they're not going to keep working. So that's why I've always ran them, and I've got some vehicles of my own personally that have over 50,000 miles of runtime on them without issues. But that being said, I just wanted to kind of clarify, like, these things are not brand new injectors, they're used. So I am sorry to any customers that have purchased these injectors, and I've taken, you know, I've gotten returns back from guys that buy these and then they get them and they're like, these are used. Why'd you sell me used injectors? So I did just want to add in a couple points. I've made this video a couple weeks ago and I haven't gotten around to editing it. But with the decapped injectors, I actually just went back to the yard today and I got some more. I usually sell out of these things like super fast, and I can't keep stock in, so anybody that's placing an order, I feel really bad, but it's been taking like a week or two for the orders to actually go out lately, and it's just because I can't keep stock in. And what I was saying earlier in this video was I only run the injectors from engines that came out from like running engines, or like when I pull them out of the fuel rail at the junkyard, they're not all full of shit and gummed up and the fuel is still clean. That's why I usually pull them from like accident vehicles or something like that. If the truck comes in and it's got a bad motor or something like that, or if it's been sitting at the junkyard for a long time, the injectors, they get gummed up, and you can send them to people like Eric Durr to get cleaned and ultrasonic cleaned and flowed and then matched and then sent back. That's why a lot of times you got to send in 2 or 3 sets so he can get you a good set complete. But from my experience of decapping these things over the years, is if you pull them from a running vehicle and the fuel is clean and the injector is clean, and you just, what I do is I run mineral spirits through them and I make sure the spray patterns are all good, they last a long time and they don't really have any sign of slowing down. But the ones that have you know, crappy fuel run through them, or they're just dirty in general, even after you clean them, they just don't work that good. And that's why, guys, you know, there's a bad rap on decapped injectors a lot of times, is because the dirty fuel that was once in that injector, it just slows the solenoid down. They stick, you know, and they might work for good for a little while, and then they start sticking open and whatever. And it's all because once contaminants get in, it's hard to fix the injector overall. So just wanted to throw that in there. I had guys, like, literally, I had a guy on YouTube commenting because I have, like I said, a hard time keeping stock of these things. And there's a guy called Jason Martinez. He's down in Texas, and he fills orders for me sometimes when I'm like, I can't keep up, I can't fill these orders. So he ends up filling them for me. And this guy on YouTube had to wait like a week and a half or 2 weeks to get his order because I was out and I had Jason fill the order. Was calling me a scammer and, you know, Satan's out to get me and all this shit. Like, he was, wow. Like, what the fuck, man? And I offered to send him a refund and like all this shit and make it right, and he just continues to talk shit. So I'm sorry if you're that type of person and you don't believe what I'm saying is true. I even give him I gave him my phone number, like, call me, you know, whatever. I'm trying to be the best person I can be to these people, but, you know, some people, I don't know, they don't believe me, or they don't want to, you know, talk or whatever. So, like I said, I try to treat my customers as best as I can, but it is extremely tough sometimes with, sometimes the amount of volume that comes through my website, which is, I'm very blessed and I'm very happy that you guys are still continuing to buy these things, but it is tough. You know, it's just me. I go to the junkyard, I do repairs on vehicles, I dyno tune vehicles, I respond to messages all freaking day long, and I get burnt out sometimes, and it's tough to keep up. And I apologize to all the customers and friends and family members that have fucking messaged me and tried to talk to me over the, you know, overdoing all this stuff, and I don't get back to a lot of them because I just get so fucking burnt out. I take my phone and I literally chuck it out the window because I'm like, I'm done. Like, I've had enough today. I need to go hibernate somewhere, you know, and it's just been tough. So I appreciate all the customers. I appreciate all the orders. I appreciate the, you know, everybody. I really do. So thank you to make this idea that I had to put these injectors into a Honda a reality. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of this video, and it may be helpful for some people to put these injectors into your Civic. This video we're putting them in a D15, but yeah, so thank you again, and I don't know, I really don't know what else to say other than I'm doing my best, and I'm in cahoots with trying my damnedest to streamline this process a little bit better, because I've done a lot by myself. I really have. But I want to scale up from here and grow in business, and I just got to do it smartly. And doing it smart takes time, and it's not always the smoothest road. There's a lot of bumps and bruises along the way that I've found. And it, like I said, it's been tough to manage. And I'm terrible at managing shit. I'm terrible at getting back to people. I just suck. So, like I said, I'm doing the best I can, but yeah. Enjoy the rest of the video, and thanks for all the support. I never expected to sell this many of these, but it is what it is. So, anyways, I have the RDX style top hats on these injectors right now, and I'm gonna pull one off just to kind of show you. So here's the injector without the top hat, and it has the stock O-ring on the top. Typically I take I used to, before I started using these top hats, is I would take the top O-ring off, and you'd have to grind the lip on the top to fit into a Honda rail, but then you run into the issue of these injectors are too short. So this top hat, I mean, literally just plugs onto here, converts it down to the Honda size O-ring, and then you're good to go. And there's very minimal things you have to do to space the rail. because the top hat pretty much makes them the same size as the Honda Injector or slightly taller. So if anything, you have to space the rail up a little. Some of them you have to space down. So some of these cars have a spacer where the fuel rail bolts on, and you have to remove that spacer or add another. Or what I do is I take like these little washers, these like fender washers, and I stack like say 2 or 3 of them or 4 of them or whatever, depending on how much the injector needs to move up or down. You want to clamp them down into the rail tight, but not too tight. You want to make sure they do not move up and down in the rail, but you also don't want them to be so tight you can't turn them when they're sitting into the intake. So I'm going to install these, and we always just use the stock lower grommet on the Honda intakes. They are loose, so like if you, especially these ones, because these were bored for a DSM injector. So if this sits in here, it is kind of loose, but as soon as you bolt down the rail, it pushes against the grommet and it seals it, and I don't usually ever have vacuum leaks or anything like that. So you just have to make sure that you get them pressed down enough where they're not moving up or down, and just the simple pressure pushing against the grommet usually is good enough. But a completely factory grommet, yeah, these are these little spacers I was telling you guys about, where these are like the factory ones. So these are the factory lower grommets. I just grabbed some. So if we put the injector into here, it is a little loose. So the pressure pushing down against it will seal it. So they usually sit like something like this on the injector. So this is just going to push into the grommet, and the pressure from the top of the rail pushing down is going to seal the lower into the stock lower grommet. That's what I do, at least. I'm sure there's guys that have retrofitted them differently. That's another thing to like remember, is these are out of a GM truck. They're not out of a Honda, so you have to make them fit. They're not a complete plug and play deal. I have been accused by certain people of screwing them over and all sorts of crazy stuff, where guys think I'm out to get them, and I'm not. I'm offering these things for like $100, and I'm not making like a whole ton of money, because I pay quite a bit to get injectors and find injectors and have them shipped to me from different yards. Some junkyards, you know, charge like $20 an injector, some charge 10. You know, it all depends on the yard and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm not like trying to say that these are like some perfect injector, because they're not. They're just great, and they work awesome for somebody on a budget, and that's kind of what I've always tried to portray. All right, so with the top hat, I'm gonna slide these into the rail. I always recommend putting some grease on the O-rings. All right, so now the injectors are all in the rail with the top hats. I'm just gonna slide them down like you would install any other injector. We're gonna check our spacing. So I have no spacers in here right now, and they just plugged pretty much right in. And there's about the same size spacing as there would be with the stock injector. So I might have to use those stock spacers, or I'm gonna use washers to lower it down a little bit more. But we're gonna tighten this down a little bit and see how much space we're gonna need. I'm currently just tightening them down until there's a little bit of resistance on the nut that holds the fuel rail down. So this is kind of how everything's gonna be sitting right now. This is with where the stock spacing would be. So you can see there's a gap in here where that spacer normally would be. And this is about how they would sit with the stock spacer in. They still turn, and we don't have any play up or down. We do have a slight bit of play up and down. Not a whole lot, but I think these are just a little loose currently. So I'll probably end up stacking like 2 or 3 washers instead of the spacer. So I'll take the spacer, the factory one. So this is the factory spacer.
This is a factory Roxy.
Right. So you can see right now I have 5 washers is equivalent to the factory spacer. So what I'm gonna do to get the rail a little bit tighter is I'm gonna do 3 washers instead of the factory spacer. So we'll have 3 of these instead of the spacer, which will allow the rail to go down a little bit more. So these will go under the fuel rail before the snout, like where the stud comes out on the intake manifold. They're gonna go in between here where my finger is.
You need me to hold this for you? Oh,
thank you.
What a gem I am.
Two would probably be good too. I think 3 might be a little much. I'll try 3. And I'm only doing the 2 on the outside until I figure out the spacing that needs to happen. So there we go. Now we have those washers in there. We'll bolt her all back down again. Now we'll tighten it down all the way onto the washer. Also, you want to be able to bolt or have the rail clamp down onto something square. So like if you're not fully flat on your spacer or the rail is going to be, you know, like kicked one way or another, especially if you have them too tight. The rail isn't going to sit straight. And when the rail doesn't sit straight down onto like the flat spacer or these flat washers, if the rail is kicked one way or another, you're going to have a leak out of the top hat or on one of the O-rings. Yeah, this one's still a smidge loose. So I think we're gonna go with the 2 washer like I was saying. So now I switched it back to two washers instead of 3. Now though, they should be a lot tighter. See, now it's perfect. I can still turn it left and right, but it doesn't have any up and down. So these are sitting nice and straight. The top hats are not crooked or cocked one way or another. That's one thing you gotta look for if you got a leak. These are all nice and even, straight, and they're fitting nice. So like I said, same thing with the Flex style. If you're putting them in a Honda, K-Series, they bolt right in. I have Flex styles in my Integra, and you don't need a top hat or anything. They just go right in the rail, the stock rail, or an aftermarket one for K-Series, because they use the bigger O-ring. This style, or Flex style, in like a B, D, H, F series engine, you'll need the top hats more than likely, or if you want to retrofit your own O-rings and stuff, you can do that, but you got to just be mindful of how to space the rail properly and get them to sit good without you know, having up and down play and stuff like that. So now I'm going to wire in the electrical connections. The pigtails on this car is an OBD1 car, so they have EV1 injector clips. The Bosch 2200s would plug right in, but the Flex style has EV6, and these normal style have Delphi, which I provide a junkyard clip. So like these, I'd provide something like this, and you'd have to wire these in. Get these separated from the rest of the harness here. So you can see that they have like this tape and stuff on them. So what I do is I take the tape off, and now we're left with the 2 wires that we have to wire in. I usually, personally, I take this little white clip off and I just run tape on this. You can leave the white clip on if you want, but I just like it the way it looks without it. It's supposed to like hold the clip or the wires into the, it's supposed to hold the wiring like into the pigtail, but I don't have issues with the wires coming out on these at all. So I just take it off. So then we're left with this. And you can see I can pull on these pretty hard and they're not budging whatsoever. That's another good thing about like factory stuff. Like this comes out of a factory vehicle, so a lot of this stuff is like held to a higher standard than like aftermarket parts are. At least in my opinion, that's what I think. So I'm gonna do that to all these, and then we'll just wire them in. Doesn't matter what color goes to what. You can wire them either direction. Just make sure that cylinder 1 wiring stays with cylinder 1, 2 stays with 2, etc. Just make sure that you know, whatever way you wire it, I usually just like to wire them all the same direction, even though I've done it where one is wired one way, one's wired the other way. It makes no difference, because all an injector is a solenoid, and all this does is open and close it. It closes a circuit, so it doesn't matter what side you power or ground, it's going to do the same thing. So this is what the pigtails look like after I take off that stuff. I don't do this before you get them, but you can do what you want. You can leave that stuff in, you can take it out. Like I said, I just like the way it looks like this instead. So now I'm gonna solder these in to the car, and I'll pick up with you guys when I'm done wiring that in. All right, back at the shop, wiring up the decapped injectors, and I got all the pigtails soldered onto the harness. So you can see, got them all on. Now I'm going to just put some tape around the exposed wiring or some loom, depending on what I have here. I'm not exactly sure what I have. I might just tape it. And then I'll pick up with you guys when the wiring is done and we can put the ECU in and fire up the Hondata, because I actually got a Hondata for this car that I had laying around. So I'm gonna put the Hondata in, plug in, make like a quick little tune for it, and we'll see how they run. All right guys, got the injectors back in and no leaks that I can see at least. Oh, I'm shining the valve cover. So I did prime the key a couple times and I just had to register this Hondata. So now I'm gonna make a base map for it. Everything's plugged in, and I'm gonna make a base map quick and show you what I do. We'll just start from fresh and see how it starts. All right, so I have Hondata up here. We're gonna start with a new file. So I don't know what one we should pick. What one should we pick, guys? This is out of the calibrations they give you on S300. So we have a Y7 turbo. We have a stock map sensor D15B with a turbo stock map sensor and HunterTuned decaps. So I think we're just gonna start with like a, I don't know, JDM D15B. Sure, we'll start with this. We'll run through the parameters here. First thing that we're gonna change is the dead times. I usually just choose Injector Dynamics thousands. They seem to work just fine for me. You can play around with these if you're really picky. But I'm telling you, I've never had an issue just running Injector Dynamics thousands. Or like Deechworks 800s. I've used those too. We'll set our current injector size at like 1,000. These are like a 80-pound injector, but this is a pump gas car, so we're gonna put them at 1,000 for now. We'll go through here. We don't have any boost controller. Our boost cut's at 10 pounds. Our cold cut, I'll put it like 2. Miscellaneous, we have the knock sensor off. Okay, that all looks good. Closed loop. We don't have an O2 sensor, so we're gonna closed loop disable this guy and disable the heater. We're not gonna fuck with any of the closed loop advanced stuff. No flex fuel, fuel compensation we're not gonna touch for now. Injectors we did. Trims are at 0. Full throttle shift, idle. Not gonna fuck with none of this right now. Launch controls off. VTEC is on, so we'll have to turn this off. JDM D15B came with VTEC, but this car doesn't have VTEC, so we'll turn that off. TPS, okay. Let's see here. Rev limiter 7,500 seems a little high, but fuck it. Overheating, I usually set it like 215 or 220, and then I override the fan. Set this at like 185 or 190. So that means the fan will come on at 190 if it's wired, which this car is. That should be it. So I'm gonna put the key in the ignition. And we will upload this calibration. There we go, all uploaded. Flip the key, make sure the light goes on and off. Yep, I'm gonna fire it up and see if it starts. Wow. Wow. see how far off the air fuel is. It sounds a little off, but it is idling pretty smooth already. Oh boy, we are rich. 10-0. So currently it's getting, I changed around, played with some dead times. I've never tuned a D15 with these injectors. And I got the idle at like a 12.8, 12.9. I know a guy talks shit. He says when he turns his headlights on, he can't get it to idle good. And it's all over the place as soon as he turns the headlights on. That's off headlights. That's on headlights. And that'll kind of tell you if the dead times are different or wrong. I usually tell guys use the injector dynamics data or RC 750. Those two datas work great, in my opinion. But this thing's gonna want to use more of the injector at idle. It's literally like a quarter of a duty cycle right now, trying to get these things to idle. So when you're pulling like say 10 or 20% out of idle, where it's running only 1% duty cycle or a 0.5% duty cycle, it takes more percentage to get the idle where you want it. So I just pulled out another 20% and it only went from 12.8 to 13.8. There we go. Looking good. Running at Stoich, or close to Stoich. Headlights on. Headlights off. Running smooth. I don't know. Some people just like to talk shit, but here I am making the decaps run just fine. And they'll run even better with E85, because the injector will actually be getting used more. And these are the normal style injectors, and I'm gonna run E85 through them, just like I do on the Flex. Run E85 in all the injectors. So yeah, nice and smooth, running good. Running like a clock. I could probably even lean burn these injectors at like a 16 and they'll still idle smooth. More tuning to come on this thing if you guys want to see it. Be sure to subscribe, like the video, comment down below if you want to see more of this little turd. And yeah, have a great night and a better tomorrow, guys. Thanks for watching.